Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor. The voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time. And SpongeBob SquarePants. Meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love The Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh. And Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned.
And we are now live for a brand new show. Well, not really brand new, but Splash Pages, the comic book club. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And, Splash Pages, we tried it before, and, it was difficult with schedules and everything. So this is sort of like our reboot, our rebirth, our new 52, our Crisis of Infinite Earths. I can't think of any others. So this is going to be an awesome night. And just so you know, we're going to be doing 2 shows tonight, all in one long stretch. Tonight, we're going to do Splash Pages talking about Batman and Death in the Family. And then midway, we'll split and then go into Chris's show, which he has a Spectacular Spiderman show. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But with us, we have the Velvet Joker himself, Rich. How's it going, sir?
How's it going? How you doing tonight?
Doing fine.
So on Facebook, I'm known as Rich Davis. In the cosplay community for over 30 years now, I have been known as the CT Joker. But tonight, I'm going to be known as Velvet Joker. And are you 18 to 36 years old? Are you a rough and tumble kind of guy? Do old ladies cross the street when they see you coming? Well, this is what we have for you now. I want to be a hench by the Velvet Joker. I want to be a hench by the Velvet Joker, and it's not very good. There we go. I want to be hench by Velvet Joker. So just send 1995 to the Dorkening Podcast, and you can get your book right here. You can make $1,500 to $3,000 a week.
There we go. I'll buy that for $1.
I'll buy that for $19.95.
Thank you, sir. And I know we can't see you, Chris. Where are you?
Hey.
Why don't you introduce everybody to yourself and why you're here?
I'm the host of the Radio Horror Show and here to talk about what I consider to be one of the darkest runs of Spider-Man ever, the Spectacular Spiderman run by Jerry Conway, art by Sal Buscema and J.M.D. Mateus, the other writer. This was before Todd McFarlane took over the Spider books. This was considered the kind of a pretty dark and gritty run on Spider-Man. The art was always very moody, and the tales were not for children. And we'll get into some of those tales and what they are. It was still lighthearted Spider-Man, but in very dark situations. And it's a run that has always captivated me and really brought me into the Spider books just because of how moody and atmospheric it was. It was like unlike anything else. I mean, yeah, Todd McFarlane drew dark stuff, but this was there was just constant dark storytelling. We're going to get into what some of that is coming up very soon.
Awesome. Angel, hello, my friend.
What's up, everybody? I don't have a book.
No.
But,
why don't you introduce everybody to yourself and why you're here?
I like to read comic books. You said this is a new show, new to me. I've been on it once before, but I don't think you ever aired those episodes. So those are in the vault.
Some aired and then some had issues. So
we all have issues, Leo. But yeah, no, I'm here to have some fun and kick it up with you guys and see what we can do. But yeah, everybody gave their plug, but I'm one of three on that strange show, weekly horror comedy podcast that I co-host with Ryan and Mandy. So
cool.
That's good. And Andy from Inebriart, why don't you introduce everybody to yourself and what you do and why you're here?
Sure. So I'm Andy from Inebriart. Inebriart is a group based out of Plymouth, Mass. that hosts a lot of arts and performing art events, as well as a small podcast network where I host 3 podcasts over there. And back in the day, I used to own a comic book shop, so big comic book nerd at heart. So we're here to talk about comics.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
So with Splash Pages and let's see, Chris, you want to pop out for the first half, or what would you like to do?
No, I'm here.
Okay, sounds good. So
he's eating chips.
I know. So what we do with in Splash Pages, what I want to do with this is, I loved comics when I was in high school. I collected a ton of comics, and I just fell out of reading, and I wanted to get back into it. And I figured, with Splash Pages, this is a great way to start a small comic book reading club, and get everybody the same book, and get everybody on the same page for each week, and just talk about comics and fall back in love with them. So that's basically it. So we're going to be talking about Batman: A Death in the Family, and I got a little bit of info on this for you. So Batman: A Death in the Family, not to be confused with Death of the Family, which was a later run, is a 4-issue story arc from 1988, which ran from Batman issues 426 through 429. It can easily be found via trade paperback on Amazon. I provided a link in the show notes, which clicking on that, it does support the network. It's an affiliate link. So just so you know that, it just supports the network, helps keep the lights on right there. The story was written by the incredible Jim Starlin, who also created Thanos, illustrated by Connecticut's own Jim Aparo, known for his work in Batman, Aquaman, and The Spectre. And the iconic covers were drawn by the amazing Mike Mignola. Also, he created Hellboy. So this is from Wikipedia. Introduced as a replacement for the then Robin Dick Grayson in 1983, the impulsive Jason Todd had grown very unpopular amongst readers. Aware of this, editor Dennis O'Neil conceived of letting fans decide his fate, leading to the creation of a storyline. For 36 hours beginning on September 15th, 1988, readers could call the 2 numbers to cast a ballot on whether he should live or not. Over 10,000 votes were cast, with a narrow majority in favor of killing Robin.
Kill him!
In Batman number 428, the Joker kills Todd by blowing up, I should say, spoilers, blowing up the warehouse he is being held hostage in. Batman relieves Jason Todd of his duties. So brief synopsis. He relieves Robin. He's going through some hard times due to his impulsive nature. Enraged, Jason storms off on his own. He learns that Catherine Todd is not his biological mother and sets off to find his real mother.
Drama.
I know. Eventually tracking her to the Middle East. Meanwhile, the Joker escapes from Arkham Asylum. The Batman.
Yay!
The Batman learns that he has obtained a nuclear weapon and plans to sell it to terrorists
For $1 million.
Which seems like a super bargain.
Yeah, for real.
Now,
It was
When,
1988.
Yeah.
when I think it was the who was the writer on the book again?
The writer was Jim Starlin.
When Jim Starlin went into a restaurant once, there was a guy who wouldn't serve him any food and called him out as the guy who just killed Robin. And little did he know, he thought that he was talking. He didn't realize the guy was thinking about Dick Grayson, not Jason Todd. A lot of people were pissed about this, but hadn't read a Batman comic book in years, and Dick Grayson hadn't been Robin since prior to Crisis, when he gave it up to become Nightwing, and he's been Nightwing ever since. The exception of media like Young Justice, the Batman the Animated Series, Batman Forever, Batman Returns, and of course the most recent Titans TV series. But even in Titans, he transformed into Nightwing fantastically at long last, which was something I was waiting for since the first episode. He shows up and says F Batman. And of course they bring in Jason Todd, and Jason Todd's going to have something happen in the upcoming season, supposedly, because he's going to become Red Hood. So
Crazy. So
Drama.
I know. One of the things that we have seen is, obviously Joker really kicked the shit out of Robin.
kill him.
With a crowbar.
Yeah, so we can say,
Favorite crowbar scene.
that Joker is actually the one that relieved Robin of his duties.
We have to have a full disclosure that it is not okay to beat a 13-year-old child with a crowbar and blow him up in a bomb, by the way. We do not advocate the violence against children whatsoever, but only in comic books is that okay.
Well, I was going to
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this, but what's the anime-ish Teen Titans cartoon? Not the
Titans Go?
Yeah, Teen Titans Go. In Robin's room, he actually has like a crowbar on the shelf.
Yes, and in the Death Metal Dark Knight series, the command word that the Joker who laughs uses, the Batman who laughs, is crow, and then he says bar, and that's like a snap of the fingers for the Robin Lings, demented little Robins to kill. And those Robin Lings are Jason,
hello,
Dick Grayson,
everyone.
Jim Drake, and Billy Batson.
I want to talk about it a second for the covers, because we talked about so the covers were drawn by Jim Aparo. Actually, sorry, Mike Mignola.
Mike Mignola.
Yeah, who created Hellboy. Which one was that? Was that 428? Just crazy covers. What did you guys think of the covers?
I forgot they were Mignola because I always think of him. Hellboy is much more stylized than these. These are more realistic than he normally draws, or at least how I picture him drawing. So I kind of forgot entirely that he even did these.
And this was like the big first death in comics, wasn't it?
I believe so.
I mean, we didn't think he was coming back at the time. It seemed like a real death.
No, I mean Gwen Stacy had a pretty prominent. I mean, she got girl in her refrigerator and snapped at the neck after,
Yeah, I guess Gwen Stacy, yeah, sure, but like of a main titular character.
Barry Allen died in the Crisis a couple of years prior.
Okay.
Well, this is why we have you, Chris, because your comic
encyclopedia.
Exactly.
Yeah, teach me the ways.
And
I feel like it was one of those kind of stunt things that they seem to be doing for a while. Like they had the marriage of Spider-Man, which was like on Good Morning America, and it just seemed like they had like these kind of stunts that they would put out every once in a while. That's just what it made me think of.
Wait a second. Comic book companies doing like stunts to sell.
That's how you got red and blue Superman.
That's how you get the silver embossed cover of what was that? Silver Surfer number 50.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the prelude to the Infinity Gauntlet.
I bought so many friggin' copies of that issue. I think I bought like 20 something issues of it.
Well, when you make baked chicken for you and your wife tomorrow, you know what to wrap it in the oven.
Actually, over the years, I gave away a bunch of them, so I think I only have probably a couple left.
And Leo was sitting on a gold mine when they cast the Silver Surfer in a Marvel movie coming up, and that thing blows up.
How about the Joker being a UN delegate for Iran, and they actually show the Ayatollah in the comic?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
That's crazy. I didn't remember that till rereading it.
No, and
it's so like lifelike, that one particular frame too. It's like they had like captured, I guess, the essence of him. So that was one of the frames that stood out, at least in the panels there.
The frame that stands out to me is Batman punching Superman in the face and Superman rolling with it because he knows he would cripple Batman completely. And Batman going, "Oh, oh!" Batman and Superman, you just sprained it. You'll be okay, you big baby.
It's funny. Like, I kind of even forgot that, you know, Robin's supposed to be a teenager until Chris brought it up. And it's like, how did a teenager get to the Middle East by himself? I feel like that should be challenged.
Yeah, he's got...
Well, did they say in the comic his parents died when he was like 15 or 16, and this is supposed to be 2-3 years later, isn't it?
No. Okay, Jason Todd's dad is dead, as far as we're aware. His dad was some low-time crook. His origin became the animated series Tim Drake origin. That's the quickest way to get through that. But his mom, who is a complete piece of shit, is in this book, and she betrays him to the Joker, and then sits there, watches, and smokes a cigarette while the Joker cripples her son.
Yes, the crowbar,
which is super, super dark.
And then even still, he jumps in front of the bomb to shield his mother from the blast.
Right, and then she dies in Batman's arm, like, I didn't deserve him. He was such a good boy. And Batman should have just been like, snap! I just finished you, Jason. Where are you?
Well, he didn't know that she did that. She double crossed him.
Oh, he's Batman. He knew.
He still had the idea that he left him in the tent and was like, all right, I'll be back a couple hours. You guys catch up. He didn't know that she was like, oh, why did you come back? You ruined my life.
So this was my first read of the story, and I was shocked of how good this was. So it's obvious why it became a classic. The storyline's really good, and it's just the death of Robin. I'm just going to show for the people that are listening. You have to tune into the live screen. Here we go. I mean, you definitely feel for everything that's going on. It's just very well illustrated, and just a story that goes along with it. What did you guys think of the story?
Well, I love the story.
Rereading it, like, it's been. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You go first. You're on top.
Okay. So rereading it after, like, it's been. I think the last time I read it was shortly after it came out originally. I can't believe how much of it I forgot. I forgot Superman was even in it. You know, it's in the Joker becoming a government official. It's really good. And I was never a fan of Robin, or this Robin, I should say. So I gotta admit, I was one of the ones that called to get rid of him.
And know the
your fault. What's that?
What was
Chris?
that? Sorry.
I was going to ask, does anyone know the two different origins of Jason Todd?
Besides the boosting off the Batmobile.
Okay, so he has basically, before the Crisis on Infinite Earths, he had Dick Grayson's origin, the exact same stupid origin. And then after the Crisis, they made him into the street rat, thieving little kid that Batman finds stealing the hubcaps.
Yeah.
So Robin's Aladdin?
Sweet chat.
One thing that really covers well is how evil the Joker really is. He's going on a killing spree, and it certainly covers where this was picked up in Under the Red Hood. Is no matter how evil he is, the Batman still won't take care of him. He's just going to let him go and keep on killing.
That's his thing, right? He can't kill anyone. That's his code.
Yeah.
Well, in this one, he was ready to. That was the thing. Like he said at the end, like things like he has to retrieve his body, and no body.
Yeah.
So it's like foiled.
Fight lived on.
The one thing that I found different in rereading this is the kind of implications behind what Joker was doing, because this was 88, so it was long before 9/11, and terrorists weren't like, that was something that happened elsewhere, and so like rereading it's a totally different. I think it like is much darker reading it now than it was then.
Yeah, like with the whole terrorist training camp.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fancy seeing you here. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just training terrorists. I've been here for 3 days. That's why you were able to beat them. I didn't finish my training. But definitely, and then the black market stuff, and then like him worried about staying relevant, because he says at one point he's like, like you need, in order to be in the business that I'm in, like I need money. What I mean? So like at all costs, whatever the case may be, for the Joker, which is his MO. They're like, it's unhinged. There's really
costs money to run these capers.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's one thing that really hasn't been covered too much that I know of. Talking about how the government's taking his assets, since he's been in Arkham.
Mm-hmm. Which is a difference in the Christopher Nolan universe, where he's like, you don't need money. Yeah. Like in this, he's like,
Right, and I don't remember a time in the comics where, because in this comic, when certain times when the Joker's trying to blend, he actually wears like flesh-covered makeup, and I don't really remember seeing that too much in the comics.
Yeah.
I just have to bring up, this is one of my favorite suits. So Batman's blue, gray, and yellow. I think this is the first Batman that I was introduced to. Who else was a fan of this suit?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the one I grew up with watching. Super Friends.
Yeah.
Yes, a traditional.
I know we are coming up on time. Any other comments about Death in a Family from you guys?
Yeah, I did have a thing. So the animated movie was done pretty well. I mean, it's right in the beginning of the prologue before the opening title sequence comes up. And they don't, excuse me, they don't mess the Robin up as much as they did in the comic book, where he's just like bleeding everywhere. You know what I mean? Blown up in a bomb, he should be missing an arm and a leg too. But comic books.
Yeah. Well, he also his mother said he threw himself in front of him to.
Right. He should be in a million pieces. He should be completely destroyed. Batman should be burying. What's left of Jason should fit inside a matchbox. Also, it's so weird that you see on the cover, and sorry, not just the cover, but also the images. Jason is bleeding red blood, but a few years later, when they do the Death of Superman, Superman's got like black blood for some reason because of comic code nonsense. It is very funny that you had to call a 900 number in order to kill off Jason. I tried calling it; it's inactive.
Yeah, but
it doesn't even connect you to a nice lady for $4.99 an hour a minute.
That's one for.
Does anyone know how Jason Todd came back to life? By the way, the lamest way possible.
Well, was it part of the retcon punch? Am I remembering? No, it was before that, wasn't it?
The what?
The retcon, when Superboy punched out of wherever the hell he was and caused a ripple and changed things around. Was that part of that?
It was part of that. You're correct. He basically was having his little tamper tantrum, and he was pounding on the walls of frickin' eternity or wherever he was locked up in with the other pre-crisis characters that nobody gave a crap about until DC brought him back and made them all supervillains. And the reverberations of time and space of how insanely powerful Superboy Prime is brought Jason Todd back to life. Jason Todd was a corpse in a grave, shriveled up. I mean, he wasn't completely decomposed to a skeleton yet, but he was getting there. And then he crawls his way out of the grave. He is a mess of broken bones. He basically, for whatever reason, the graveyard is right next to a cliff, so he falls in the water and washes aboard the island owned by, of course, Ra's al Ghul, who's like, put that back in the water. I can't have any of that on my doorstep. If Batman finds out I have Robin here, it's over for me. And Talia's like, yeah, but like, we haven't brought up the fact that I boned and raped Batman yet and brought Damian into this world. So before that plot line ever becomes a thing, I'm going to dip him into the Lazarus pit and then give him a big smooch on the face and drop him back out in society with, completely messed up brain to become the Red Hood.
Yep.
And actually, so under the Red Hood, the most recent Death in a Family cartoon or the movie, basically they took Under the Red Hood and just spliced in a couple scenes. Did anybody watch it?
Yeah, I did. It was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, you were telling me they just repurposed.
Yeah, it was pretty pathetic. I just wanted to cover real quick. So if you are just joining us, we do have a group, the Splash Pages comic book group, and I urge you definitely check it out. So we put in a poll. Now we're going to be picking out next week's issues at the end of this show. So I put in a poll for what everybody is looking for. The leading vote was Batman Hush, followed by House of M, then Death of Superman, Secret Wars 1984, and then after that, any Wonder Woman.
Any wonderful women.
And there were tons of comments as well. Tons of
Hush is good.
Yeah, Hush is long though, right?
I'm actually reading it now.
Hush is 12 issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. 12 issues. I don't know how long it is.
So
and there's an animated movie which was very good and much better than the animated movie had a better ending than the comic book.
Yeah, the animated movie was really good.
That could be debated.
I didn't read the actual Hush yet.
No spoilers.
So do we want to break that up into a couple episodes? You know what? We can discuss at the end of it.
You might watch it. Hush does tie into Jason Todd.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to show a ad for our sponsor. And when we come back, we're going to be covering Spectacular Spiderman. And we'll go over some of the stuff in the comments as well. Some people want to cover Superman Secret Identity. Brandon Mark Powers said that was amazing. X-Men Legion Quest and Age of Apocalypse, also by Brandon Mark Powers, did a ton of recommendations. Capwolf from Joey DiCarlo, Astro City, Rising Stars, Superman The Return, Promethea.
Is that when he had the mullet and the beard?
No idea.
All that chest hair. What? You don't remember that?
I remember that. Some of us try to put it out of our brain.
Yeah, he had the mullet until he lost his powers and got married. Then he got a haircut.
Yeah. Some people were thinking, he should have had the mullet, and Henry Cavill should have had the mullet when he came back.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
Yeah. I mean, he had the mustache already, so he could have just done a goatee with a mullet.
Yeah, they could have worked that in. They didn't have to CGI his top lip.
Yeah, oh my God, that's shit. Okay, well, we'll leave that for another day. Here we go. Deadly Grounds Coffee is a sponsor of ours. We absolutely love them. They make the most amazing coffee. They help keep the lights on for this for this network here. Check the links down below or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us for information on Deadly Grounds. But here's a zombie talking about coffee.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Okay, we're gonna change gears here. Angel, I know you wanted to hop out for Spider-Man.
Yeah. I'm not I didn't get to catch up on that, but maybe on the next web slinging time. But yeah, thanks for doing this. Having me on. Nice seeing you guys.
Take care.
Have fun.
See ya.
See you, Angel.
So as you know, we do podcasts here. So the splash pages will go up on the Dorkening Podcast Network. And I'll let Chris introduce the Spider-Man show, and then I'll do a little synopsis of it if you'd like. So
in talking about why this is the darkest era of Spider-Man, I believe. I mean, there has been dark eras of Spider-Man, but just in terms of like at the time, this was one of the darkest, just continuing running stories of Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man was pretty self-contained to itself. Yeah, they had their occasional crossover, like, you know, when Marvel did a big crossover, they did Inferno, and that connected to all the titles with the Hobgoblin. And what did happen in Amazing Spider-Man affected other books, because that was the main title. And there was Maximum Carnage, which crossed over in all the books as well. But Spectacular, Web of, Adjectiveless, and Amazing all pretty much did their own stories. Amazing was the core book, and Spectacular was always the, like, let's make extra money book. And it first started with Spectacular Spider-Man #1, which was by Conway and Sal Buscema, who would come back and do the book later on. Now, we're going to start not necessarily with this per se. We're going to be starting with the Captain Jean Dewolff Death of storyline, because the beginning of Conway and Buscema's run on the title until it became Buscema and J.M. DeMatteis was the Return of the Sin Eater. And I figured for a podcast, we should probably talk about why is it called the Return of the Sin Eater, and talk about the actual original Sin Eater storyline, which is the death of Captain Jean Dewolff. Now, this is pretty relevant to today because the Sin Eater has recently shown up in the Amazing Spider-Man ongoing title involving Kindred and that whole storyline. Not going to get into it. It's not really too relevant to the podcast, but Sin Eater currently is running around in Spider-Man, but he's like a magic Sin Eater. He's using his shotgun to absolve people of their sins. He's not killing people. So in the Spectacular Spider-Man books, he is a serial killer, and Leo has the plot synopsis for us. When we go through the books individually, the format's pretty much going to be title of the book, credits, and then a brief plot synopsis, and then going through the title panel by panel. If you listen to the podcast I do, Goth Girl Horror, the Hackslash podcast, it's going to be very similar to that format. A lot of comic book podcasts do that. They have a plot synopsis to give everyone their accolades and the credits, and then they go over the issue, kind of panel by panel, page by page. Typically, the podcast is going to be one issue. Sometimes it will be a couple issues. We're going to be banging out a few books in the first couple episodes just to kind of get a jump on. But most of the time, it's going to be a single issue of Spider-Man for the podcast, so we're not overloading what we have to talk about. Just this episode being the premiere, and the next episode being the sequel to the premiere, it's important we do multiple books. But typically one book per episode, unless we do two because of a crossover event, and we'll let you know ahead of time how long what that's going to be. So, but Leo's got the plot synopsis and credits for all these Jean Dewolff killing issues.
I do. So once I pull up my paperwork here, and so the Death of Jean Dewolff is a 4-part story arc in Spectacular Spider-Man from 1985 to 1986. It ran through Spectacular Spider-Man issues 1 107 through 110. It can be easily found via trade paperback on Amazon. And again, I provided a link in the show notes, which clicking on it, it's an affiliate link, so it does support the network. So we greatly appreciate that. And just goes right to Amazon. The story was written by Peter David, known for his award-winning 12-year run on The Incredible Hulk. Penciled by Rich Buckler, best known for his work on Fantastic Four. Also creating the character Deathlock in Astonishing Tales number 25. Buckley drew virtually every major character at Marvel and DC, often as the cover artist as well. This is inked by Brett Breeding, Joseph Rubinstein, Kyle Baker, and Pat Redding. Joseph is known for inking the original 1982 4-issue run of the Wolverine miniseries, and Kyle Baker has won numerous Eisner and Harvey Awards, and his work has been across the comic spectrum for many of the publishers. He's done a lot of indie stuff as well. They didn't have information on the other two individuals, unfortunately. So, with the death of Jean Dewolff, after capturing a trio of muggers assaulting Ernie Popchick, an elderly tenant of Aunt May, Spider-Man learns that his close friend, NYPD Captain Jean Dewolff, has been killed. She was killed in her sleep. Spider-Man confronts the police officer in charge of the investigation, Sergeant Stan Carter. Carter tells him Jean was killed by a close-range, double-barreled shotgun. The blast and her badge was missing, and that's where it leaves us. This was, yeah, you were right, Chris. This was absolutely dark. But since it's going to be on your pod, why don't we get everybody to introduce themselves if you'd like? So why don't we start with you, Chris?
Didn't we do the introductions previously?
Yeah, but this is going to be on your pod.
Oh, okay. You can edit this part out. Okay. All right. I'm Dr. Chris. I do the radio horror show for the last 13 years, a live broadcast radio show on the dial in Worcester, Massachusetts. Possibly the longest running media radio horror show in New England. And I do a show on the Dorking Network, which is currently on hiatus, but I also do several other podcasts that you can find on radiohorror.com. Comic book related podcast, Goth Girl Horror. We talk about Tim Seeley's hack slash slasher horror comic book with my co-host Charcy Deluxe. And this was my idea to start this podcast based on this just incredibly dark run of Spider-Man. And by the way, Leo, the credits are the same for all 4 issues, so we don't need to go through the credits every single time.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's go ahead, guys.
Yeah. For me, I never keep on I keep on forgetting to introduce myself. My name is Leo Pond. I run the Dorkening Podcast Network, and I think this is going to be a blast. And also this gives us the chance to talk to Rich, my friend.
How you doing? I'm Rich Davis on Facebook, CT Joker in the cosplay community for over 30 years. And now here on Splash Pages, I'm the Velvet Joker.
And we forgot one thing. So, Andy.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Andy. I run Inebriart, which is a group based out of Plymouth, Mass, where we run a lot of art events, both visual and performing. And I also run the Inebriart Podcast Network, which is a small network where I host 3 shows myself.
Awesome. And Rich, we forgot to do the ratings by Crowbar.
Right. We did. We discussed that after each comic book, we would do a rating system, but instead of 5 stars, 5 crowbars.
Oh.
Yeah. So I can edit this in. So what would you give Death in a Family?
Well, I would give it 4 3/4 crowbars. And the only reason is because I really hated Superman sucking in all my laughing gas. That big blue Boy Scout.
Yeah, that was a crazy panel. I myself, I'll give it 4 crowbars, and is just a very enjoyable read. And what about you, Chris? 1 out of 5.
A 5.
You sure? I thought you didn't like it.
No, I said I didn't like Jason Todd. I've never liked Jason Todd. I don't like Jason Todd or Damian. I'm a Tim Drake fan.
Okay.
I'm a huge Tim Drake fan. That's where I really started getting into Robin, was when Tim Drake was Robin, because he was my age. So that Jason Todd, oh God, I was so happy when he died. So
Chris, then you're a fan of crowbar beating.
Of fictional characters, yes. I don't want Nancy Travis's lawyers to come after me. Thank you. Was she crowbar? Wasn't she?
You mean Nancy Kerrigan?
Nancy Kerrigan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, my joke got messed up. Go ahead.
What about you, Andy?
I would give it 4.5. It's an absolute classic.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, Mr. Chris.
All right, so maybe it'd be easier, probably just for time's sake, because we are covering 4 issues, to do 2 issues at a time. You know what I mean?
Do you want me to bring up the issues, or what?
Yeah, bring up issue 107, 108 on the Still Story, as they call it on MST3K for everyone to see.
Okay, give me one.
Put that up on Still Story, Cambot. So here's a couple things. I have a couple quick notes about the Spectacular Spider-Man book itself, by the way, that I want to get these out in the first episode. The original series ran from 76 to 1998, where it was canceled. And there was a second series, and then there was a third series, which was canceled to make way for another Spider-Man book. And yes, once upon a time in the comic book industry could support 5 separate Spider-Man books. There is currently 1 Spider-Man book per Spider-Man character now. If you can believe that. Venom, Spider-Girl, Miles Morales, Silk, Spider-Man, they all have their own title.
It was amazing, Peter Parker Spectacular, Web of...
Yep.
What are the other ones?
Yeah, adjectiveless.
Oh, just Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Spider-Man. That's why they call it adjectiveless, like adjectiveless X-Men, adjectiveless Superman, Batman, so on and so forth. And then there was Spider-Man Unlimited as well, which was a bi-monthly book that came out when Maximum Carnage happened. So there was a Spectacular Spider-Man comic book, by the way, for a magazine. It was a giant size, like huge magazine, which I wish I'd had my copy with me. One was a reprint issue. One was an original story that Amazing Spider-Man had been building up with the Green Goblin. If you remember the 90s the Spider-Man animated series, and how the Goblin like teases Peter at dinner, being like, "Aren't we gonna reveal our secrets, Mr. Parker?" And Peter's all like, "He does know I'm Spider-Man." That actually came from this Spectacular Spider-Man giant size issue, which is incredibly hard to find, and they have only ever reprinted it one time. But there was a Spectacular Spider-Man magazine before the Spectacular Spider-Man comic book series. And then, of course, there was the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, which the only reason they called it that is because of Sony trying to create their brand new only Spider-Man show before the whole, we have the rights and Disney, Marvel, legal crap. That's why it's called Spectacular Spider-Man. This Spider-Man story by Peter David was the beginning of the Dark Era Spider-Man, hence why the title is the all-new, all-daring Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. They kept the all-new, all-daring on there for quite some time, as well as the Peter Parker part, until the run that we're going to be covering in the following episode, The Return of the Sin Eater. Peter David started on this book. He wanted to make it like a crime story with Spider-Man, hence why the final panel of every issue is a black box, because that's usually when the Sin Eater has killed somebody. And another thing to point out is that the beginning of this story, you don't know what is about to happen because it's being told by Jean. And then all of a sudden she talks about how everything just feels weird. It feels like she's talking about real quick.
Oh yeah, so
what's that pounding at the head in my head? Why do I feel so relaxed? Because I've been dead for a day and I have been rotting. That is a shocking moment that the narration is by the dead woman.
Right.
Now, Captain Jean Dewolff was a way to give Spider-Man his own kind of like Jim Gordon. He'd had a cop in his back pocket for a while. Like, not his back pocket like the mob, but you know what I mean? A cop in his corner. He had Captain Stacy, but he died, in a battle with Doc Ock. And then years later, we got Jean Dewolff, and she appeared in and out of the Spider books to give Spider-Man not a hard time, to be like, okay, you go, we'll take care of it. I'm not for costume vigilantes, but I'm not an idiot. I know you're not a criminal, Spider-Man. You know what I mean? I've been a cop long enough. And she had a badass look too. She wore a beret. She had this mini skirt on. She had the high heel boots. Maggie Sawyer kind of borrows a look from her in the early days of the Superman book, if you know who that is. This was just an unbelievable crime story that you would see on a crime show, like any other. I mean, it had like little crime side plots in it, like this guy, Mr. Popchick, who was this boarder who lived at Aunt May's house, who was always hitting on Aunt May, that Peter beats up the criminals as Spider-Man, and then the criminals are defended by Matt Murdock in court because Spider-Man doesn't know anything about due process and Matt Murdock does. And Peter doesn't realize Matt Murdock is blind, basically calls him, "Are you blind? These are the criminals who were beating up an old man, but you defended them. You're kind of a jackass, Murdock."
That was actually a pretty good panel because Matt Murdock goes something like, "Spidey's here," but he's talking weird. Oh, he must be in his civvies.
Right, and there's other important characters to this whole story. In the first couple issues, we meet a what is the name of the African American priest who's always in the news spouting stuff people don't always agree with?
Not sure.
Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton.
I think it's Al Sharpton.
Okay, so we have a character in here who's basically the same way. He's speaking for a large group of people, but a lot of what he's saying just really gets more people riled up than actually helping. You know what I'm saying? He's a victim of the Sin Eater. We also meet a man who is a bit crazy, who is hearing voices, and he becomes a very important character. And we meet a friend of Matt Murdock's, the person that actually pushed Murdock to become a lawyer. He became a judge, and Murdock became a lawyer. He's also a victim of the Sin Eater and very important in these first two issues. These first two issues set up a huge groundwork for the rest of the storyline, and also cements two major things in the course of Marvel's history to this very day. And we'll get to them in the second two issues after I hear your guys' thoughts.
Well, so I have a quick question. You mentioned when she's talking about her death, that was not in my issue.
Yeah, right at the very beginning, those yellow boxes, that's Jean thinking to herself.
No, I know.
Her being blown away.
Yeah, but she doesn't, in this issue, in this copy, she doesn't say that she's rotting.
No, but you learn that when the cops break into her apartment and they're like, "Jesus,
okay.
Smell."
Okay, yeah, the way you said it sounded like,
she could smell herself. No, sorry.
No, like she was rotten. Yeah, I totally get that. This was her, and then she says, "Why am I thinking about my life?" And then it ends there. Yeah,
it's your life flashing before your eyes as you die.
Yeah, exactly.
They also go to her funeral, and I listened to a YouTube channel pointing out about the funeral being a little bit ridiculous. Like, her mom dresses a little ridiculous for her daughter's funeral, if you notice in the panel, and as well as they make no mention of her brother, Brian Dewolff, is actually the Wraith, a supervillain that was killed by the Scourge, or I think he escaped the Scourge. I'm not 100% certain. We also meet Stan Carter, who is the police detective that is investigating Jean Dewolff's case. He's actually a former agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. too, which Spider-Man sees on his desk a photo of Nick Fury signed to him. And it's like, who the hell has a photo of their boss signed to them on their desk?
And of note, it's the old school Nick Fury.
Yes,
it's the original Nick Fury, who is now currently the Watcher. Well, I'm sorry, no, he's not the Watcher anymore. The Watcher just came back. So he is the man on the wall. Excuse me. He's the old man on the wall. Why? Because we got to make it look like the movie. So, out with the old Nick Fury, in with the new Nick Fury. Honestly, that's the only reason why, but we're not here to talk about Nick Fury. Do you also notice in this panel, Leo, right here, that's on the screen, who's in the crowd shot?
Yes.
Charles Bronson. I saw that. Yeah.
Isn't that great? Considering what movie Charles Bronson would make.
I like that he's holding up a piece of paper that says vigilante too.
Isn't that fantastic? So that's all the notes I have and thoughts about these two issues. A lot to unpack, but I wanted to get through it as quickly as I could.
Okay. Why don't we start with you, Andy? What were your thoughts on the first two issues?
Now, I've never been a huge Spider-Man fan, but
Get the hell out of here!
I actually really dug this. The Sin Eater really reminded me of Scourge, who I always kind of had. I really liked the whole Scourge story, even though I never really felt it was really as developed as something like this. So I'm curious to read more Sin Eater stuff. Yeah. So I'm curious to read more Sin Eater stuff, and because I was not familiar with him at all.
You mentioned the Scourge. That if you read current issues of Captain America, that is still ongoing right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they brought it back.
Yeah, well, they revealed years ago the Scourge is not one person; it's an organization, and it was founded by a Golden Age superhero that Captain America unmasked.
That I remember.
Yeah, it was in the issue where the Scourge kills like 20 villains in the one single panel. He just like
yeah, and like they're all like hanging out in a club or something.
And they're all the crappiest villains ever that you don't care about. They're like Spider-Man villains, Daredevil villains, wannabe Iron Man villains before they made Iron Man like an A-level hero. Iron Man fought crappy street-level villains for a long time, like the Ghost and Ice, whatever, Bad Iceman or whatever you want to call him, Blizzard, I think his name was.
It was like the Armadillo and
right, yeah,
members of the Serpent Society.
No, they hadn't quite been invented yet. Mark Grunwald had there'd only been a couple of those, but they weren't the Serpent Society yet.
Well, I thought
like
Death Adder was
Porcupine?
one of the ones that got killed.
What did you say, Andy?
Was Porcupine Man in there? I'm trying to remember. I feel like he was.
I think he was, but for some reason I'm trying to remember what was the name of the villain in the case inside Avengers Mansion that they propped up as a hero because he did one good deed before he got killed. And then the Masters of Evil broke into Avengers Mansion and were just like, "You can't have that costume. That's our villain."
I don't remember that.
So this issue right here, issue 109, and by the way, I have every single one of these issues signed by Peter David and the artist.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
This was the very first issue of Spectacular Spider-Man I ever read. Whether it's this copy or not is irrelevant, but this was the very first issue of Spectacular Spider-Man I ever read. I had no effing clue who anybody was other than Spider-Man, and I was still a little baffled, like, why is Spider-Man in a black costume that's usually worn by Venom? I didn't get the correlation between the two, and I was 10 years old, so that's why. But this blew me away, especially the final panel where the Sin Eater looks like he murders Betty Brant. And I had no idea who Betty Brant was. But this issue absolutely captures, like, Peter's relationship with Betty Brant. Like, that was the first woman he ever loved. Like, before Mary Jane, before Gwen Stacy, Betty Brant was the secretary of J. Jonah Jameson, played by, who played her in the movies?
Oh, man. No clue.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, shoot. All right, anyway. Spider-Man just beats on the Sin Eater. After him and Daredevil find out the truth behind the Sin Eater, he goes right to Marla Jameson's house because J. Jonah Jameson's out of town. Marla, his wife, asks Betty to stay with her because it's kind of like Son of Sam, where she's like afraid that the Sin Eater business is getting out of control and she wants someone to stay with her while Jonah's out of town. And Spider-Man just beats on Sin Eater because all he's thinking about is that he just murdered, the first woman he's ever been in love with.
Chris, that was Elizabeth Banks who played Betty Brant.
Thank you, Elizabeth Banks. It was at the tip of my tongue. So, okay, pause right here, Leo. This guy right here. Does anyone know how important this person is to Spider-Man right now?
No.
The wannabe Sin Eater guy, the guy who was hearing voices and was like, "Oh, it's me. I'm the Sin Eater. Ah, ha, ha. I'm actually just completely crazy." So this got revealed that this guy was actually the Sin Eater. A little Daily Globe reporter named Edward Brock Jr. decides to write the editorials exposing the Sin Eater as this guy.
That's funny.
And then Stan Carter is revealed to be the real Sin Eater, a police captain who was having an affair with Jean Dewolff, which we learn in the Return of the Sin Eater. and who was part of a super soldier program at S.H.I.E.L.D. to once again redo Captain America's serum, but ended up making him go crazy. They detoxed him and sent him back out in the world, and he became a police detective. This guy would be the false Sin Eater. Brock would, of course, lose his job at the Globe, be discredited. His wife would divorce him. His father would disown him. And then one day he decides to go into a church and try to commit suicide and find a giant glob of goo that has also been rejected. But that's a story for another time. But they tied, in Amazing Spider-Man number 300, Dave Michelinie and Todd McFarlane tied the origin of Venom, Eddie Brock, back to the Sin Eater perfectly, I thought.
Really?
Yeah, which, by the way, if they ever did that in the movies, that would have been fantastic. But what did we get? We got a guy jumping in a lobster tank eating lobsters. I mean, come on, seriously. Every time they've done Venom, it's been a giant piece of crap. You know, the actual origin of Venom that I just described would have made an amazing movie.
I do have to say, bringing up issue 300 is a little painful because I had that when I was a kid, and it got stolen from me.
Do you want my copy? I'll sell it to you. $600.
No, thank you.
Okay. It's signed by Todd McFarlane. I mean, if you want it.
Yeah. Oh.
The other thing about this storyline is that this cements the Spider-Man Daredevil relationship. Peter is like so pissed off that he believed in Stan Carter that he lets Daredevil escort him out the back of the courthouse, and all the New York cops are there, who is just like, a cop killed one of our own, we gotta kill him. Basically, the city is in pandemonium right now because they find out the serial killer is a cop. You know, not great for police department, but a cop who killed another cop and a bunch of innocent people, a priest, an activist, you know, a black rights activist, as well as a prominent judge that a lot of people respected, blown away by a cop. The Daredevil is left to himself to defend Stan Carter, trying to get him to safety. And he's like, Spider-Man, help me! And Peter's just like, you're an idiot. This guy deserves to die. I'm so pissed off that I'm going to let everything I know about who I believe in just go out the window. And then that's when Daredevil's like, Peter! And that's when it snaps into Spider-Man's head to go save Daredevil, because he knows who he is. Right there. That is a great shot of him just pounding into the Sin Eater.
Yeah, he really kicked his ass.
I mean, and Spider-Man, when Daredevil fights Spider-Man, Daredevil is not super powered. He has radar sense and ninjutsu skills. He does not have the strength that Spider-Man has. He knows that Spider-Man could kill him.
Well, that's another thing that really came out in this. As we know, the Venom symbiote really messed with his mind, and he became more.
Well, hold on. This isn't Venom.
This isn't the Venom suit?
No, he gave up the Venom
just
suit.
the black suit.
This is just the black. This is just a black costume.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
as I was reading it, I was thinking, okay, he's being more violent because of the symbiote. But
so I don't know what issue of Web of Spider-Man is happening around this time, but about 12 issues prior, in issue 99, it led into Web of Spider-Man number 1, where he has his final confrontation with the symbiote. The symbiote disguises itself as the red and blue suit. Peter puts it on and then tries to bond with him against his will. And that's when Peter goes to the bell tower and tries to kill the symbiote once and for all. At some point after this, the symbiote reconstitutes itself, and that's when Brock goes to the bell tower right after he's outed as a fraud and tries to kill himself. And that's when the symbiote finds him and says, hey, don't kill yourself. I know everything about Spider-Man. Let's team up.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying about the darkness, because years later during the secret, not secret invasion, what was it called? The Civil War, Spider-Man's identity had been outed and Aunt May was in the hospital. He decided to put the black costume back on, but the thread black costume. And that's why they always refer to it as like the darker time of Spider-Man, because when he wore the black costume, it was darker.
Oh, so like
maybe, sort of,
DC
not
movie?
entirely.
I was saying dark like a DC movie.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, sort of. I mean, he was like, I don't know. And the Black Cat loved it because she loved Spider-Man, and that costume was kind of like her costume. So
I do like, Chris, that you explained that Sin Eater has that kind of super soldier serum background to him, because I was kind of like, how can he take those hits from Spider-Man and get up?
Right. Yeah, and then nowadays Sin Eater is some type of corporeal ghost or something working for Kindred / I don't know if I should reveal who Kindred is, but that's a weird storyline going on right now. And then that's going to be the next story that we cover, the return of the Sin Eater, and that actually kicks off our run of this podcast, talking about the Sal Buscema, JMD Mateus, Jerry Conway Spider-Man story. This has some weird controversy to it because Peter David was fired off the book of Spectacular Spider-Man because the editor at Marvel thought he was too high profile to write a Spider-Man comic book when he was writing episodes of whatever TV series he was on at the time. Wow. Jerry Conway came back refreshed and renewed because he was writing Spider-Man when he was like in his early 20s. I mean, he was a really young writer at Marvel, and he had left Spider-Man after the the creation of the Punisher and then the death of Gwen Stacy and the Green Goblin. The first time we thought the Green Goblin died, and came back to do this Spectacular Spider-Man book years later with a new, refreshed sense of like, I know what I'm doing this time.
So in the book that we have here, this is actually the trade paperback, and this covers actually all 8 issues. The ones we're talking about are the first 4 tonight. But if you check the link in the show notes, you'll have a link to the book there for the trade paperback. And somebody on Amazon was trying to sell the trade paperback for like $1,000.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, the one I linked to is actually a hardcover copy for $50, and then the digital version, which digital version is pretty cheap.
Did anyone notice the weird type of photos that Peter takes, by the way?
No.
Okay, so this beautiful, busty blonde character right here, who is an absolute nobody in the book, Peter just sees her running by and is just like, oh, well, there's one for the Bugle, a person on the street shop.
Oh, yeah.
But if it doesn't, if Robbie doesn't buy it from me, I can always have it for the Spank Bank. I mean, he literally says it's for the dark room, but come on. It's like, what are you doing, Peter? And then, by the way, so Pop Chick, the guy who gets beaten up or whatever, and then he buys a gun, and some guys are on the subway hustling him. He shoots all 3 of them because he doesn't want to be hustled by young people anymore. This is a World War II veteran who was beaten up in an alley. His assailants were let off scot-free by a judge who's easy on crooks and a blind lawyer. He's had it. He doesn't deserve the disrespect he's getting, so he buys a gun, and the first young people come up to him begging him for money, saying, come on, old man, I know you got some cash. I mean, you got those nice shoes. Bang, bang, bang. Oh. And then Aunt May calls Peter and says, Peter, Mr. Popchick is in jail because he shot some young people. Matt Murdock picks the phone up off of Peter's hand and says, hey, Aunt May, it's me, Matt Murdock. I can help you.
Well, and that's how they end it. That's where, they're buddy at the end.
Do you know how it ends for Popchick, though?
No.
He gets kicked out of Aunt May's boarding house, and we never hear from him again. We can only assume he is probably dead.
What are you reading the Stark shit for, Chris?
Keeping up the dark theme.
Did everyone notice that one page of the Santa Claus asking the little girl to open her window and let him in?
Yeah, that was creepy as all hell.
Okay, so it's not going where you think it is. He wants the little girl to help him steal mom and dad's stuff. He doesn't touch the little girl. He doesn't do anything to kids. He just convinces the kids he's Santa Claus to take their stuff, like the Grinch, to be fixed. But he's just stealing their crap.
Yeah. The second kid he hits, he goes, Dad's gonna be so happy he's getting a big screen TV for Christmas, and it only cost me our little TV.
So it's so implied that something insanely bad is about to happen. Don't worry, we get there. If that's the type of story you want, we get there in the Spectacular Spider-Man run eventually. Trust me, it's rough, and we might have Jim Aparo on the podcast with us to talk a little bit about that controversial storyline. He came on Radio Horror recently to talk about his run on Spectacular as well as his other work, and I had to bring up to him The Child Within, which is a freaking dark as hell Spider-Man story as you can get.
Wow. So I know we're running a little bit on time. What was everybody else's thoughts on it? Let's start with you, Andy.
Like again, sorry, Chris. I grew up X-Men fan, not Spider-Man fan, but okay. I did really enjoy it, and like I said, the Sin Eater really piqued my interest. I don't know, everyone loves true crime, serial killer stuff, so how can you not like Sin Eater?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, but I would definitely recommend this run.
Yeah. I think it's one of the best.
I give it 3.5 shotguns. I guess. Are we doing that or?
I don't know.
Well, for now, let's just stick with the crowbars.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3.5 crowbars.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What about you, Rich?
Well, I also enjoy the dark storyline, the dark aspect of it. I did collect at least 3 or 4 of those Spider-Man series at that time. And the Sin Eater didn't really stick out in my mind strongly until I reread it, and and I didn't remember the Nick Fury stuff, so it was cool to reread. So I'm gonna give it 4 crowbars.
4 crowbars. Okay. For me, I started Spider-Man around. I mean, I picked up some, but I didn't really get into it. I loved reading. When I was young in the library, the Amazing Fantasy number 15, they had that and Spider-Man number 1 in a hard book. And that kind of got me, hooked on Spider-Man. And I really started getting into it in the McFarlane run, right when Venom came about. With this here, it's friggin' dark. I even have a couple of these issues, and I don't remember it being this dark when I had it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. What I love about Marvel is, and you can definitely tell the different styles between Marvel and DC, since we just did 1-on-1. Marvel really ties back their stories into previous issues. Every 5 pages or so, there's a little asterisk with, check out, Spider-Man number, 101 or whatever it was. So I really enjoyed that, having that canon there, that continuity. Which you see in DC, but definitely not as much. But I agree. I'll give this 4 crowbars myself.
And in the next storyline, we're going to get into the psychological aspect of being a serial killer with PTSD and, about people with mental health with guns and stuff like that, because that's what the next story arc really touches upon. And I know a lot of that stuff can get very political, but I think it's really important to discuss those topics because of the fact it ties so directly to this character, the Sin Eater. So the next episode will be the return of the Sin Eater, and we'll go through it as quickly as we can before we start doing standalone issues per episode because of these 2 storylines being so heavily tied together. And we also get Electro too, by the way. So.
Very cool.
And how much of a loser character he is, because he literally points out that he's a loser character. Every time I put on a costume, Spider-Man kicks my ass. What if I just walk around my civvies using my electrical powers, What's the what does Shazam say when he's making money, hustling people for money by using his Shazam powers in the middle of the movie?
Oh, is it lightning from my fingers or something like that?
Yes, that's what Electro should do. Lightning from my tips. Lightning from my tips. I mean, Electro became such a loser character to the point that he was banging some chick and electrocuted her in the midway through having sex, and then she got his electric powers and she killed him, and now Electro is a girl.
Oh wow!
And she can't call herself Elektra because there's already an Elektra. And by the way, there was an issue of Spider-Man where Electro fought Elektra once.
All right.
It was after the Clone Saga, and it was awesome.
Because
Peter points out, "You're ripping my name off, woman."
The Clone Saga, that's actually when I kind of fell out of comics because it got so confusing. There were so many crossovers, and it was like, why the hell am I doing
And that's
this?
when we're ending this podcast, by the way. Because honestly, that Spectacular does not become a standalone book until the Clone Saga finally ends. At that point, Buscema and Jay Mateos are gone from the book. So we are ending this with the Clone Saga starting. We will do like one story leading into the Clone Saga because they're part of it, so we should cover it. It's the final non-Clone Saga Spider-Man story involving the Scorpion. But we're not going to cover the Clone Saga. There's a podcast, by the way. There is a podcast that covered the entire Clone Saga. They came back after a 2-year hiatus to finally do Revelation. So they have did every single piece of the Clone Saga.
Oh, wow.
And it was just announced, and it's not an April Fool's joke early, that Miles Morales is going to get his own Clone Saga.
I think I saw something about that today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
which is funny because they already did an Ultimate Clone Saga in the Ultimate Universe that Miles comes from, and now they're going to do a Miles Morales Clone Saga within his own book because he has his own standalone Miles Morales Spider-Man book.
Okay, so this is a book. It's not a series or anything like that.
It'll probably have like 20 fucking tie-overs.
Gotta make money.
So, Chris, we didn't hear from you. How many crowbars?
I guess 5. That's very new to me. I don't know. But just so everyone knows, we are going to try and cover one book per title. It's just the first couple episodes are going to be multiple books to get through the bulk of the story. So,
and that's smart. That's why we fell off with Splash Pages in the beginning, because I think we tried to tackle too big a storyline, and we get to record, and then all of a sudden, like oh, I didn't have a chance to read the book, or then rescheduling. So I think definitely with like at least the first half also is sticking to shorter storylines. Or breaking it up, like Hush. When we're going to do Hush, we'll break it up. We'll figure out how to do that.
Or something like Inferno, which has such a huge crossover. It's going to have to be multiple shows. I'm going to have to cover multiple stuff of it because of the main storyline. Crosses over into other Spider-Man books. I'm not going to read those Spider-Man books. It's just going to be like, go read this to find out about yada yada that just happened.
Yeah.
But when we get to like Maximum Carnage, which is a little ways off, that will be that should be an entire big crossover event because that's 14 parts.
Yeah. That's with that's where 365 is, right? That one that skyrocketed in price. Amazing 365.
365 is the first appearance of the parents since they died.
Right.
Oh, you're thinking of 360 or 361.
Yeah, maybe it's 361. I know it's 360.
The first so Carnage, like Venom.
Yep.
So Carnage, like the Green Goblin, has multiple first appearances. There's the actual first appearance, but there's also like the first appearance of Norman Osborn, which is not the first appearance of the Green Goblin. There's the first appearance of the Green Goblin. There's the identity revealed of the Green Goblin. Whereas Carnage has like the first appearance of Cletus Cassidy, and like a blip of blood is like the first appearance of Carnage. But it's like, no, the first appearance of Carnage, Marvel's website has said is Amazing Spider-Man 361. And if it's on Marvel's website, guess what? That is the actual first appearance, scalpers. You have this argument with people who are like, but the first appearance of Spider-Gwen is in this imaginary dream sequence in the Deadpool versus a Hawkeye miniseries. And it's like, no, it's not. It's Spider-Verse #2. Marvel, on their website, the publishers of the effing book have put Edge of Spider-Verse #2 as the first appearance of Spider-Gwen. That is the first appearance of Spider-Gwen, idiot scalpers.
Yeah, I agree. Scalpers suck.
Well, not just scalpers, but also store owners who think they know so much or whatever. And it's like, you're just in it for money.
Well, Chris, do you have any last words before we close things up?
No, just keep in mind, we're going to try and do one book per episode. We're doing multiple books right now just to get through a bunch of story or whatever at once. but it's going to be very self-contained to one issue, 2 issues maybe, but 1 issue per episode. We got a big Tombstone storyline coming up. It's going to be 5 parts. Can't wait to do 5 episodes because that's a lot of books.
Awesome.
So, and Tombstone is a great character too, especially if you don't know anything about him. Considering he's only been in what, Spider-Verse, right? He was in Spider-Verse.
I think he's in the game also.
But he was in. But in terms of media content, big screen media content, he was in Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't have much to say, but he was in the movie at least, which is nice because he's been regulated pretty much to animated series most of the time. Keith David played him in the Spectacular Spiderman animated series.
Huh.
Because they didn't have access to the Kingpin because the Kingpin was tied up in the Daredevil movie rights, which was tied up with Fox.
Yeah. We know how that turned out.
Now we have the Kingpin movie rights, or Disney does.
Yeah, and they're talking about what is it? Did Fahey say he's not turned off with the idea of doing a soft reboot?
Yeah, basically saying
with the
that's
same
canon,
characters,
but it's canon that we want the actors to come back. That's as much canon as it is. So we don't need to trend on what we did before in the TV series. But hey, Charlie Cox, you want a job again? Hey, Foggy, and Vampire Karen Page, whatever her name is, because she was on True Blood.
Yeah, she hasn't worked since then.
Well, she does a lot of work for blind blind citizens, which is funny considering she dating Daredevil.
Yeah.
Her husband in real life is 100% blind.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and of course we don't care as much about Charlie Cox as much as we want to see William Dafoe beat up Tom Holland. I mean, come on. We all want to see the Kingpin, William Dafoe, and Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, we didn't mention that the Kingpin was in the Sin Eater storyline. He tries to take a shot at Spider-Man to be like, go away. I have problems with Daredevil. I don't need you to. And Spider-Man's like, hey, listen to me, fat man. Fat shaming Spider-Man, really. I want the information on the Sin Eater. And Kingpin's like, that? I don't have that. I don't have that type of pull. I don't want anything to do with Sin Eater.
Well, and that was funny too, because it was like one panel right after. So he got there like right after Daredevil did. So he's like on the same hunt. So it's
well, that'd be nice. I'd like to see Vincent D'Onofrio come into the MCU.
Yeah, that'd
be amazing.
As the Kingpin.
That's just like in the bar scene in those issues, guys. Daredevil's in the bar, and the bartender's like, "Not the window! I just repaired it." And then Spider-Man comes smashing through the window.
Well, Chris, definitely thank you for coming up with this awesome idea. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially covering just a couple episodes or a couple issues per episode. And with that, why don't we start with Andy? Where do you like people following and interacting with you, sir?
Oh, they can find Inebriart on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for Inebriart. We also are on inebriart.com.
Okay. And Rich?
Well, on Facebook, I'm Rich Davis. And you can see me at CT Joker 2014 on Instagram.
Okay. Chris.
Sorry, I was rebagging my my comics. You can find me. You can find old episodes that I did for a podcast called Boobs, Blood, and Badasses with my co-host Ro on the Dorking Network. Those episodes are still up. We're going to come back soon. Personal reasons why we can't right now, but we are both planning on returning for that at some point in 2021. But you can find me on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. till midnight on Dr. Chris's Radio Power on WCW 91.3 FM. I don't know who we have coming up soon. And I do a lot of podcasts, again, comic book related. Goth Girl Horror, the Hack Slash podcast is the one I will probably more often reference on the show since it's comic book related. We cover Tim Seeley's Hack Slash comic book, an issue at a time or a couple issues at a time, depending on the story arc. So we just posted, we got a new episode recording coming up, Hack Slash versus Bomb Queen, which is an Image comic book, busty villain, ridiculous book.
Very cool. And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. But more importantly, I run a podcast called The Dorkening.
What could be true? What scandalous secrets?
I don't know. I just say that to cover myself.
Okay.
But if you head on over to thedorkening.com, you can find most of the shows on the network. We're actually working on rebuilding the site as well because we have some new people entering the fold and some awesome stuff happening. But more importantly, follow the awesome people here and head on over to the Splash Pages Facebook group and join and talk comics with us. We absolutely love it. With that, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.